Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly. On this episode, I'm joined by Adam Hortenberry, the driving force behind Anchor Fly and Tackle. Adam shares his rapid journey from being a gear dude to becoming an obsessed fly angler and fly tyer. He also updates us on the inaugural Rhode Island Fly Bash on July 13th at Rejects Brewing Company. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. But before we get to the interview, just a couple of housekeeping items. If you like the podcast, please tell a friend and please subscribe and leave us a rating and review in the podcatcher of your choice. It really helps us out. And we've received several listener questions asking about ways to support the show. One way is to become a member of our community on Patreon and make a single or a recurring donation. Our community has some great benefits like discounts on tying materials, guide trips, and more. Check out the link in the show notes for more details. And we recently released an interview-only show, The Long Haul with the Articulate Fly. So if you prefer to listen to the Articulate Fly without the fishing reports, just search The Long Haul in your favorite podcatcher. Now, on to the interview. Well, Adam, welcome to the Articulate Fly.
Thanks, Marvin. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And we have a tradition on the Articulate Fly. We like to ask all of our guests to share their earliest fishing memory.
Sure. My earliest memory is chasing bluegills on farm ponds with my grandpa. And that was kind of our big thing growing up.
Yeah, and so was that Zebco 33 chasing or was that cane pole chasing?
Actually, both, ironically. So it's he was like a sight fisherman. He was a very interesting guy. He's a very eccentric fella. You know, he was a Vietnam vet, so he's a pretty wild guy. But yeah, we would sight fish him and the Zebcos.
Yeah, it's neat. It's kind of funny. I've got a picture here in my office of me. I'm probably, maybe 6 years old, fishing for trout on a cane pole with my grandfather, and he's got one of those aluminum worm boxes on his belt, and he's wearing, we didn't call them wellies back then, but basically like, above your knee rubber boots, and that was it wasn't fly fishing, but it was trout fishing, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can remember people doing that too back home in Ohio, yeah.
Yeah. And so when did you come to the dark side of fly fishing?
We tinkered with it as kids, but not officially until 2018 is when I got super into it, and then fly tying 2020.
Yeah. And so, what made you kind of make the official leap in 2018?
It was just a matter of a more challenging way to do things, in my opinion. And I wanted to do it for bass specifically. Like the trout thing was cool, but I wanted to focus on the warm water stuff and really hone that in.
Yeah. Because if I remember correctly, right, you were kind of a gear guy, kind of fishing for bass before you picked up the fly rod?
Exactly. Yeah. And it was like, we were obsessed with like finesse fishing for smallmouth bass and stuff like that. That's kind of where we loved doing, the 7 foot ultra, ultralight kind of deals, chasing big smallmouth.
Yeah. And so, who are some of the folks that have mentored you in your fly fishing journey, and what have they taught you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Slowly along the way, I mean, for fly tying, I would say my friend Allen Rupp and a couple other randoms. I would have to say my friend Robb Alexander, huge mentor. And then lately I've been picking Landon's brain, Landon Mayer. Like he's been a huge help, and he just knows so many. Like people don't think about him as being a guru fly tyer, but in my opinion, he is certainly that.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? There's a certain level of kind of knowledge and skill to be as reductive as he is with his patterns, right? To find something that, you can tie, I guess you call it a guide fly, that you can tie relatively easily, but, consistently works when you're out on the water, trying to put fish in the net.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's one big thing he was telling me. And we were over cocktails one night. I don't know what night, but, it's just focus on making something easy and, obtainable for someone else to try to do, replicate, and have success.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's actually kind of one of my pet peeves with the fly fishing industry. I think we do a pretty lousy job of simplifying things for people. I think we have a tendency to try to bury people in kind of disassociated information. And I think it makes it harder on them than it needs to be.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like we were just out there with him, he and my sister in Colorado, and it was her first fly fishing trip. And she's like, "Oh, is it always this easy?" Because he's just such a good teacher, and it opened my eyes truly.
Yeah, it's an interesting place. I mean, I've had the chance to go out there. I guess I was out there a couple years ago for Clean the Dream, and I don't know, we maybe spent 2 hours kind of looking for for big jawed brown trout. But yeah, it's an interesting fishery for sure. And the great thing you have there is you can go fish the still waters too.
Oh yeah, that's actually what we got to do that for a whole day, and the belly boat thing. It was really cool. It was an interesting experience with really good weather, and I was very happy and pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. And, so being, up in New England, is your favorite species to chase still smallmouth bass, maybe largemouth, but, what are you like super honed in on? I know you're not trouty, but you do it sometimes. But, if you had to pick 3 species to chase on the fly, what would they be?
Top 3 is, people are going to laugh, but obviously number 1, smallmouth. And then, largemouth bass to follow, but probably panfish would have to be number 3. That's one of my favorite fish, and on a 4-weight glass rod, like you can't really beat that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I guess the only downside with panfish is they're so damn slimy.
Yeah, that's very true. It's very true.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of do that evening, 2 hours of fishing and come home and not have to take a shower because you smell like you were in a fish market all day long.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I've worked in that industry as well, so I just get used to it after a while.
Yeah, and so you were saying, in 2020, you kind of got the inkling to get behind the vise. What led you to decide that you wanted to tie flies?
Sure. At first, I thought it was, the old "I'll save money" thing. And my wife chuckled. She said, "I can tell you right now, this is not going to be that. It's like a whole hobby."
Yeah, I would say for sure, if you're tying big flies, you're definitely not going to save money. I mean, anything that involves buying a brush, there's just no way to save money.
No. And then I jumped straight into woolly buggers, into articulated Kelly Gallup stuff, and Russ Madden patterns. And then it just kept going. And it was like a snowball effect.
Yeah, but that's pretty amazing. I mean, we were talking before we started recording. I mean, you've only been tying for 4 years. What was the first vise and fly that you tied on it?
Yeah, I had a Renzetti Traveler. Most people start out with that. I think it's one of the best all-around vices to start on. And the first fly, I would say it was a woolly bugger, and then I did a CK baitfish, also one of my favorite flies. CK baitfish, which is from your neck of the woods, I believe, Chuck Kraft. And I think those are the first 2 because they're the most productive, in my opinion. So that's what I started with.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because that CK baitfish is a lot like maybe Landon's patterns. I mean, it's a dead simple pattern, but it crushes.
And it from California to Connecticut. That fly is something you have to have in your box. That's my opinion, but that's just it's a staple no matter what, for trout or bass,
And so do you still tie on that same Traveler, or if you moved on to like a presentation or something like that?
Sure. Yeah. I went on to Regal for a little bit, and then met the folks at Nora Vice, and I tried their stuff out and ended up jumping on their team, which I really, really like. And I think it solved the problems for a lot of production tying, and it just made more sense for what I was doing. And they came out with a whole line of jaws, and they're just a great company and great people too to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. They've been a long-time advertiser on the podcast, and I say, if you go watch Tim, lay down a dubbing noodle with that vise, you'll kind of be sold, right?
Yeah, most definitely. He's really good at that. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, and so what's your preferred Norvise configuration?
Right now, I like the fine tip things. It kind of looks like I wouldn't say it looks like a Renzetti, but it kind of has that arm thing like a Renzetti would, and it spins like a true rotary as well. Not that the others don't, but like it, for me, for what I do, it kind of helps me, do what I'm doing with game changers and, little flies too.
Yeah, got it. And that's the one basically where it kind of is like looks like an L, right? Because you got to get the shank on axis to be able to rotate it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, the vise I use from them is the Legacy C, and, you can choose whatever color you want, but that's the one I like right now.
Yeah. I bet you're a purple guy, right?
That's it. Purple.
You've been profiled.
Yeah, for sure.
So you had mentioned Allen Rupp a little earlier in the interview. Who are some other tires that you follow?
Sure. Tires I follow would have to be locally in the fly fishing circuit world would be Sergeant Bass Fisher, of course. My buddy Matt Bailey. But big names I really love is Kelly, Russ Madden, Blaine, of course. I mean, that's huge. Bob Popovics. I mean, the list is endless. And then, yeah, like Landon, he's huge too. Charlie Craven, of course. I mean, I can go on all day.
Yeah, and is there kind of a particular, I mean, all those guys are accomplished, but, like Sergeant Bass Fisher is a deer hair guy. I mean, is there something in particular that you're kind of gravitating to right now?
Right now I've been tying a lot of crayfish patterns, and I nerd out with that. And Kelly has the best perspective on that, in my opinion. So crayfish patterns and like not overdressing the fly, and yeah, crayfish are definitely the fly I've been, trying to. That's the bait I'm trying to replicate the most lately.
Gotcha. And so kind of what does your kind of prototypical crayfish fly look like?
I think the easiest way to start it out is use Dave's near enough crayfish as a starting point, and then go from there and tweak it, add on what you want, subtract, and he's kind of already laid it out. And the other crayfish pattern that's awesome is that another Chuck Craft pattern. I think it's the Clawdad, or I think that's the name of it. That's an awesome one.
Yeah, and you can crank those things out. You just buy those pre-cut claws, and I mean, you can knock out a dozen in no time.
Oh yeah, that's a tremendous pattern. Guide fly,
yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, which is funny because I work with Matt Riley, and he says you're going to lose a lot of them with those lead eyes, but it's a good thing they're easy to tie, and you can do them pretty quickly.
That's right. Yeah, you got to fish them with confidence. It's another reason you're not scared to lose it. So you're going to get where they are.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, right? I mean, so you start tying in 2020, I guess I know you were taking some of the COVID classes that I did with Blaine. And I guess we probably met officially in person. Was it in Edison?
Edison. Yeah. That was my first year doing that particular show. And it was amazing. Getting to meet Andy Mill was there. It was just like all these guys that I really look up to and admire. I was like, wow, it was crazy.
Yeah. And so, it's amazing, right? So in 4 years, you go from tying a woolly booger to like being, a prominent tyer on Fly Tyer Row. We're going to talk about your fly tying event coming up. How did you progress so quickly?
I really paid attention to detail, and I watched a lot of Kelly's videos, ironically, and like he's very meticulous about like the amount of wraps you do, the amount of material you put on, why you're putting it on, et cetera, et cetera. It's just managing your materials is number one in fly tying, and I don't think people do it enough. And I think sometimes people just slap stuff on a hook and add more rubber and they call it a fly. I mean, that's cool too, but I don't know. I like to put things on for a purpose.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I mean, there's got to be a little bit more to it than watching some Kelly videos, because there are a lot of people that do that. So, I'm going to push a little bit harder to get you to cough up the secret sauce.
Yeah, I mean, I truthfully think I just got obsessed and just kept doing it, reading books. That's a huge one. People don't, like guys my age don't do, in their 20s to 30s. They're afraid to buy that book and just commit instead of just YouTube. Is like really read it, understand why they're doing it. And then, you kind of have to get obsessed in a weird way is to hone your craft, so to speak. Like you got to dial it in. You got to tie 100 bad flies. You get the good one. Really just repetition and and really pay attention to what you're doing and have attention to detail.
Yeah. And so what are some of your favorite tying books so that you can kind of help some of your younger generation brethren?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I would start out with Modern Streamers, Kelly Gallup's, and then follow that up with Bob Popovic's, either of his books, the Pop Flies or the second one. I'm blanking on it, but that's a huge one.
Yeah, I think it's Fly Design.
Fly Design.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the one he co-wrote with Jay Nichols, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's it. And then Blaine's book's tremendous. I like what's his name? Jake. I think it's Jake, the smallmouth guy from Pennsylvania. His book's really good.
Yeah, Vilwack.
Yep. Yeah, I like his book a lot. And those are some great books for trout and smallmouth bass. Kim Landrear has one too. I think it's called Smallmouth Basics or one of those. I'll send you all the books I was referring to, so people can look them up because they're huge in my opinion, especially for smallmouth. But those are huge. And then in the trout world, I love Craven stuff. Charlie Craven.
Yeah. I mean, I think his kind of introductory tying book is probably one of the best tying books I've ever read.
Yeah, Charlie's. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I would say if you're a trout guy, you need that on your tying desk.
Yeah, and then you can go down the rat hole and buy his nymph book and his streamer book and everything. So,
yeah, support him for sure, man. These people are tremendous in our industry, so for sure buy their books and support them.
Yeah, and it's interesting on the video side because it's funny you say that, because I'm kind of working on this book project, and so all of Kelly's old school videos, there's all the stuff he does on YouTube. I think he probably needs his own FCC license at this point, but all of his old school stuff, you can actually find those on Vimeo and buy them or rent them.
Oh yeah, I saw those actually. Back when I first got started, typing on Google where to what to do, where to find, kind of thing.
Yeah. And then I would say the other thing on the video front is if you haven't checked out Fishing TV, it's insanely cheap. It's like $6 a month, and they're old like DVD VHS tapes of Bob Clouser and Lefty tying flies and Bob telling the story of the Clouser minnow. I know Popovic's videos are up there as well. So that's another great place for people to go.
Yeah, some of that's from like the 90s, and then the stuff from the other guy like Lefty and Bob. Those are tremendous videos. And Joe Humphreys is on there too. His little documentary. It's amazing. Love that documentary.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I'm going to push one more time because again, you can buy books and you can watch videos, but you don't go from zero to a hero in 4 years. So what did you do?
Oh yeah. So, I just picking the brains of guys at shows, honestly, like what really has helped me progress. My buddy Robb, he's not like, he's not big on social media. He has one, but he'll be at my event that we'll talk about in a bit. But he's been tremendous with helping me out and what to do, what not to do kind of thing. And then just overall, like asking people their opinions, like, hey, does this suck? Does this look good? Be honest. Don't shy away. And if you really want to get good at fly tying, you have to kind of find that person that'll just be honest with you, not just be nice to you for social media,
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think Sundays at the fly fishing show are great days to get that kind of intel.
Huge days. Yeah. This year in Marlboro on Sunday. Very insightful. Yeah, it was after the show was even better. It was football, a couple of cocktails and laughs, it's the best time to learn.
Yeah. And so you start tying in 2020, right? So when did you decide, hey, I want to be a production fly tyer?
I would say a couple of years after that. Yeah. And I started that up and I thought I was going to just destroy it and had a few hiccups. And it was a lot of lessons learned early on. And then I've kind of dialed back on that sort of thing. And then I'm focusing on trying to create my own stuff too. So instead of producing like a Blaine's Changer Craw, I'm trying to dial that back because he has his own thing going too. So I'm trying to just, make my own mark eventually, but, slowly but surely work on my own stuff.
Yeah. And so what were some of those surprises and lessons you learned as you kind of went down the production tying path?
Production tying and overall the industry is just don't try to rush it because it you're not gonna you're not gonna get there super fast. You got to kind of pay your dues, just sit back and you'll get there eventually. And with the production tying, it's a lot of work, man. Like for the production flies tied overseas, I give those people kudos because it's tremendous to sit there and tie, a dozen game changers. I ask anyone to do it and get consistency, and it's very time consuming, away from your family and friends and fishing, like what we like doing.
Yeah. It's interesting too, right? Because I mean, my impression is, there's a difference between like, being a production tire and cranking out parachute atoms and, being a production tire tying, I'll just call them loosely predator flies, right? And it's kind of like, people call you like, dude, I need a dozen of these tomorrow.
Yeah, unrealistic expectations are a big thing. But you kind of have to be nice about it too, because you don't want to be that butthead at the shows or with your customers or your friends. Hey, dude, I need a dozen of these flies for my trip. Oh, ooh. I normally just tack on a service fee, and they kind of understand, because you have to sacrifice at that point. So, if people want flies like that cranked, I normally, you just tack on your fee, make your time worthwhile.
Yeah. But I mean, particularly during COVID, I mean, dude, just getting hooks and materials was hard. So, I mean, it wasn't like you could just kind of, pull flies out of the air.
Oh yeah, that was huge. Yeah. And then I didn't have some commercial accounts and stuff. So it was also like, oh man, it adds up quick. Yeah. And like you said, like hooks, like another reason I learned never go with a specific hook brand. Like just kind of keep it loose. Like, size 1, size 2, like, stick to the 3 you like and kind of, cause it'll change quick. Now we're looking good in the industry, but then it was like, ooh.
Yeah. And that's even before having to think about collecting and remitting all that excise tax stuff too, which is an absolute nightmare for fly tires.
That's a big piece of it. That's another reason why I'm kind of like, oh, all right, let's figure something else out.
Yeah.
Like I still want to tie flies and stuff, but like maybe I'll just try to create a commercial fly and keep it low key and not have to worry about it as much.
Yeah. That's a lot of brain damage to move 12 game changers,
Oh yeah, 100%.
So, as you've got in this production groove, and I know you're not doing as much of it as you used to, but, I was wondering if you could maybe share 3 tips for mere mortal tires that you kind of learned on that journey to kind of help folks kind of up their game.
Sure. One big piece is like preparation, kind of like a chef does. You got your mirepoix and like blah blah blah. You got everything ready to rock. I would do the same in fly tying. Set out your feathers, or we'll just use a feather game changer for example, so make it easy. Those little prepping stations from Hairline are a huge asset to your fly tying bench. Prep your feathers in advance. Pluck them all up, nicey nice. Get everything ready. Get your shanks ready. Have everything at the ready that you're going to use, and then clean as you go is a huge piece because some desks can look, and it just overwhelms you. And if you want to production tie for your own box, it just makes it a nightmare. Yeah, that's a huge piece. Like another easy one is like Moorish hoppers or like a chubby is just stamp it out, get it ready, crank them, because it can be intimidating to have all those materials flying around and you're jumping around from material. Like just do 1 fly at a time and do like 6 for a normal tire. I would do, okay, I got squirmy wormy. I'm going to do 6. Just do 6s and 12s and your boxes will be really full. That's a huge piece I learned from some guys at shows. Always tie 6 or 12. And then, you got some for your box and some to sell,
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because, I mean, that was kind of how, like, particularly when I was, trying to get better at tying dry flies, I would do 6 and then I'd go down a size and tie 6 and go down a size and tie 6. And that was a trick. So I guess I'll give you credit for maybe like 1.5. I'll squish those together. And I think those Hairline blocks you're talking about are the ones right there. I think Drew Chacon has them, but they're basically like blocks of foam that have slits in them, right? That you just kind of, it's almost like it's like a bill holder almost, right?
Yeah. You could probably craft one yourself, but they're like, they're like $6. Like just go to your fly shop and get one, you know? Yeah, they're super helpful. Like huge piece of my tying and many other people's.
Yeah. And so what's tip number 2?
Organization is huge. I kind of tax in with the other one, but it all kind of flows together. So organization is huge. Sometimes I'm really bad about that. I'll admit it, but organization is huge. Like it's another reason why I like Landon is because like I really like to observe people when they're doing something, not just sit there and watch them just to watch them. It's like the dude's everything's organized. Hooks, you know, his pine squirrel for his leech patterns and et cetera, et cetera. Everything's meticulously organized so that when he goes to tie, it's right there where he knows it is. So stay organized on your bench and on your desk too. That's a huge piece is organization and preparation. And then third would have to be planning. You know, it kind of goes into preparation as well, but just make sure you have everything ready to rock. And yeah, and then the slash to that would be consistency with your flies. Is, you know, if you do 2 wraps on that, do 2 wraps on the other, et cetera, et cetera. Make a match, and it'll give you confidence in your fly too, because you don't want the wonky doodle one. That's the one you'll never fish. You always have that one sitting in your box, wasting space.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I remember Tim Camisa convincing me to, like, you know, cut all the stuff off my crappy flies for the hooks, and that was like a 2.5 hour football game beer drinking thing. I was like, I should have just put them on corks and thrown them in the trash can. But
so, yeah, that's a huge commitment. So and props to Camisa.
Yeah, but I didn't slice I didn't slice my fingers open, and then of course some of them I tied, you know, for my early days of tying. So I had to basically, you know, go get my digital drug scale so that I could try to figure out, you know, what the hook was based on what I had. But you know. Yeah. You know, in terms of organization, do you generally like to have your vise and tools kind of set up the same way every time or for every pattern?
Pretty much, yeah. Like, I mean, with the Norvise, for example, it has the different jaws. So sometimes you got to beef up the jaws if you're going, you know, bigger saltwater stuff like Popovic's flies or whatnot. But for the most part, yes. For different vices, you know, it's going to be a little bit different, you know. But like the Renzetti, for example, you're going to just flow with it. You know, it's easy peasy. Regal, same way. So, you know, Peak, whatever you got, HMH, whatever the vice company is, just, you know, get it to your comfort level and try to keep it that way. That way your flies are coming out consistent.
Yeah. And in terms of kind of organization, kind of on the bench part, I mean, are there any kind of particular ways you like to store particular materials?
Yeah. Right now I like to simplify things, which is something I didn't do before. So for example, like it's, we'll just say game changers again, just to make it easy, but I'll have my, you know, my thread scissors and then my larger curved scissors for the trimming process, like, you know, how Blaine does, you know, to get it nice and a good taper. So having those ready to go. And then for the Norvise, we have, you know, how you have to like load the threads all onto the spools and whatnot. So I prep those in advance, have those ready in the little container, and I have the colors I need ready to go next to me, or I have them preloaded on a bobbin. And then for a regular tire, I would say just load them like if you got a fire orange and a black, load them up ready to go so you can just swap in between the two. So that's huge pieces in production tying, in my opinion, of just, you know, having what you need ready to go.
Yeah.
Preloaded.
Yeah. But anything like, you know, any particular interesting way you like store feathers or hooks or keep flash from getting all smushed or anything like that you want to share with folks?
Oh yeah. Yeah, sure. So the flashy boo, I just hang like on a, one of those, what are they called? Or the, oh, whatever, you know, like the tool rack things. So I use those with little pegs on them for the flash, because I like to have mine exposed, because like I'm at a fly shop, you know, so I can kind of see all my colors. It's just the way my brain works, but and it keeps it from getting all ratty. And then feathers I keep in these like industrial bags we use at in the cooking world, and I put like those little food, moisture things in there with them, and I zip them up so that there's no chance that buggies are going to get in there, which is a huge piece in keeping chicken around or any dead critters. I seal all those stuffs up, like the feathers and the deer hides. I put it in these big, like, food safe, like, Ziploc bags, beefed up. And I zip them up nice and airtight and throw a couple of those little packets in there, and it keeps all the critters away if there are any.
Yeah, it's that'll make you cry for sure. Yeah, I'm trying to think, any kind of tricks about like how you like to organize your hooks or your beads or anything like that you want to share with folks?
I just use a couple of hairline items, and then I use simple tackle boxes from Bass Pro. Honestly, like it sounds so silly, but they're so cheap, and you go buy a 5-pack and load it up with your beads and your hooks and your cones and all that stuff. Even you could probably fit some threads in there too if you want to go that route. I got a thread organizer from Joann's, actually. They have them. So I put all my little threads on there ready to go, color code them. And that makes life easy too.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I've got one of those racks too with like a bajillion spikes for holding spools of thread.
Yeah, they're a really good piece.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I think probably the only thing I can, one of the things I do is I buy those like individual like 3-ring binder hooks, and you buy a whole box of them for like $2 or $3 at like Office Depot or Staples, and that's kind of how since hooks now are in boxes for the most part.
Yep.
Super easy to do and organize beads the same way. And then I guess also, dubbing. Yeah, but that's an obsession in and of itself. And then you start going to places like Joann's or Hobby Lobby and you come out and,
yeah,
you try not to like buy any like, silk flowers or anything, but, get some containers and beads and pliers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
Yeah. So do you have any favorite materials you like to tie with or maybe stuff that you're playing around with right now?
Sure. I'm obsessed with like a lot of the stuff from Enrico EP. A lot of his brushes and stuff. I think, man, I was talking to him in Edison and he just said like, obviously the tarantula, the woolly critter, like all those brushes are phenomenal for what we do with game changers and crayfish flies, shrimp flies, baitfish flies. A lot of his stuff just makes life easy. But a lot of the stuff he has coming out and some of his production flies, man, that has tied, and just in general, his stuff is crazy. Like he's a very meticulous man, and I love his materials. So EP, I love the EP stuff. And then I'm obsessed with rubber legs for some reason. I don't know what it is, but Sightcast has some really cool rubber legs if people want to check those out. I'm not affiliated with either of them really, but those are huge. Those are awesome.
Yeah. So have you gone down the rat hole of making your own brushes?
I was going to, and then I was like, you know what? No. For now, I'm good. Like Enrico, I think has it dialed in. His Foxy brush, his Tarantula brush. I mean, they're just so good. And I think he's awesome. Nice guy.
Yeah, it's interesting. In Edison, I remember watching squimpish flies making brushes, and it was just mind-blowing, right?
Oh, that's one company I forgot to mention. That Squimpish, of course. I mean, David Nelson and his wife, oh my God, tremendous people. Their material is fantastic as well. I don't tie too much of that big stuff anymore, or I don't use it too much, but what you can do with those materials is just tremendous. So if you're a musky guy or tarpon or a steelhead, like you need to check David's stuff out.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. I mean, kind of once Bob cracked the code on getting size without, in creating something that was big that you could cast. I mean, those brushes are insane, right?
Oh yeah.
But, another question I always like to ask serious tires is I bet you have some kind of goofy, bizarro tool on your tying table that you can't live without. And I was wondering if you could share that with us.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it would have to be, everything else is pretty common. So I would have to say a big pin. A big pin, or I use the finger comb brushes. You ever seen those? I don't know if it's crazy or wackadoodle, but it's very essential to what I do. Like some guys use like regular combs, but this is like a little finger comb. Looks like a cat toy thing. It's really just, like I said, it has tons of little spikes on it, so that's what I use a lot.
Oh, I'm with you. It's kind of like a dog or a pet brush, but it's the one that you like put on your finger. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I would say that's an unusual one for sure. Yeah, you're the only person on over 800 episodes of the Articulate Fly to say that you use a finger brush when you fly tie.
I think it's for consistency and not making sure you trap the fibers and all that stuff. It's huge.
Yeah, and I would imagine, right, you're using the Bic pen. You're just throwing the pin part away, and you're using it to reverse tie bucktail and stuff like that.
Yeah. There's some really expensive, cool tools from, I'm sure, awesome companies, but man, when in doubt, I pick it out. It's right there, ready to go. So.
Yeah, it's funny. I can remember, gosh, it might have been the last fly tying symposium before COVID. People were like, for whatever reason, someone had told me a story before how they didn't have any bobbin threaders and they didn't like to suck the thread into their bobbins. And so I went on Amazon and, bought like 5,000 of them for like $5 before COVID and was just passing out 25 and 50 packs of threaders. I was like, dude, if you lose it, you got 49 more. So.
Yeah, honestly, that's a huge one that people don't think about. I like having that bottom threader, especially with the Norvise setup, just because it makes it easier. Like I don't mind doing it that way with getting it up with the mouth, but it's just so convenient to have that little threader.
Yeah, I would say though, once you start playing around with, let's just say, kind of either really fine or kind of non-traditional threads, that little trick, you pretty much have to have a threader, right?
I agree. Yeah, like with your nano silks and GPS, QSPs and whatnot. Yeah, you got to have it. It makes life way easier.
Here you start doing crazy stuff like weaving bodies and you're splitting embroidery thread, stuff like that.
Exactly.
So, if you're not crazy enough, you start, fly fishing in 2018, you take up tying in 2020, 2022, you say, I want to be a production fly tyer. And, now you've bitten off, organizing the Rhode Island Fly Bash, which is going to happen, I guess, middle of July. And, what on earth made you say, well, hey, why don't I create a tying event in New England in the summertime?
Yeah, I got a lot of weird looks, to be honest. A lot of naysayers at first. Most of them are on board now, but I wanted to combine a lot of my passions, which is music. I played drums in punk band, and I wanted to do that. And then at the venue we're going to be at, my band played, and I was sitting there, and you can see Newport from the venue, like when you're playing the show. Like I'm on the drum kit, you can see Newport in the background, and I'm thinking, imagine if you're on this thing giving a presentation about fly tying, as you can see the bay in front of you. Like how much better is that? And of course, there's already booze on site, and that just makes things a little more interesting. Stories get a little more elaborated. The fun begins, so to speak. So I think it's just a great combination of what we love, in one way or the other.
Yeah. And so, let's do, you want to share some of the tires that have committed to the event already?
Sure. I won't go down the full list, but I'll name some of we got Tim Flagler's the main guy. He's going to do a presentation on what I don't know yet, but I'm sure he'll have something cool for you. And then, the second, fellow doing a presentation is Joe Cordero with the flat wing. He's a Rhode Island staple, New England staple, in my opinion. He'll have his books and some, obviously he's going to bring all of the chicken feathers for you. And then a few other names. My buddy Robb will be there, who I mentioned, the guy who I really look up to in tying. And I don't have the full list on me right now, but I'll send you the list and you can put it on here. But a lot of great tires that you would see at the fly fishing shows normally as well. So a lot of Jersey guys, a lot of guys from New England. Sergeant Bass Fisher is coming. So that'll be the deer hair guy. And we kind of have all the bases covered: trout, saltwater, and warm water. For it's not just a one-stop shop. It's more than that. You're going to learn everything. It's not just saltwater. It's not just trout. It's well-rounded tires.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because I think the great thing about these kind of smaller tying events is that, you get to really spend a lot of one-on-one time with the tyers.
Yeah, that's a huge piece I wanted to include. So I kind of just made the decision about 2 hours ago. I'm going to do it in like a bench format, as you would see at some of the where people can sit down in front of you versus just stand there awkwardly. So they can just sit down with you and, you can run them through a pattern, like kind of like the Salbug show in Arkansas, but like where you can actually spend 25 minutes with someone here. And I'm just standing there gawking over them. You can sit down, have a conversation, sip your beer or water, whatever you're into. And, have that discussion with them, and everyone will be there available, to tie. I forgot to mention Bart Lombardo is also going to be there with his buddy Lou and Panfish guy. And he's something special. I love that guy.
Yeah, very neat. And so, in terms of kind of a run of the day, you're going to have 2 presentations and then just kind of open tying. Have you got kind of anything else going on you want to share with folks?
Sure. Yeah, we have a couple of vendors, Squint Bait, which is David Nelson and his wife Steph's company. We're going to have tons of raffles. Another company called Hi Guys Fly Co. He's going to be selling materials, bucktail, chicken, all sorts of stuff. So we'll have 2 or 3 vendors there, raffles from TFO Rod, Oros Bobbers, or Strike Indicators, sorry. Angler's Coffee, all sorts of goodies. EP kicked in huge with a massive amount of materials for everybody. Yeah, it's going to be nice. We got tons of raffles, and all the proceeds from the raffle are going to Project Healing Waters.
Very, very neat. And so if someone wanted to either attend the event or, if you've got an open tying slot, grab one of those, where can folks go to get more information?
Sure. You can go to the RI Fly Bash page on Instagram, or you can just email me and I'll send you the email for that, and you can tag it on with this. But yeah, it's going to be huge. It's going on July 13th. It's 10 to 5, and it's a 1-day thing. So and there's a food truck on site, so you can't beat it. You can hang out all day and for all your fishing needs.
Yeah, and your craft beer needs too, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Awesome brewery.
Yeah. And so, I will drop that link in the show notes for you. But then also, too, I know you're kind of scaling back, but I'm sure people can go to tying flies for them. If someone has a burning desire to give you money for flies, where should they go?
Yeah, just hit me up on Instagram, and in my bio, I have my website, which is anchorflytackle.com. And you can, I limited the amount of flies that are on there, but there's plenty of options. And hit me up. I'll tell you whatever you want to. I don't mind doing custom orders still. I just, from now until July, it might be a little delayed, but I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. Or it may cost a premium, right?
No, I'll get it done. I just beware. I'm a little distracted at the moment.
Yeah. And so, is there anything else before I let you go this evening, Adam, that you want to share with our listeners?
Oh, no, just have an open mind. Don't have a huge ego, and really try to embrace any knowledge that anyone's willing to, gift you, from a nobody to important people at shows, just be willing, and always be willing to learn, That's huge in my books. That's why I'm doing the show.
Yeah. And it's an amazing thing too. I mean, I think these kind of smaller tying events are great because it's so hard, if you can't make a Sunday morning at one of the fly fishing shows to kind of get that one-on-one time with the tyers. It's one of the reasons why I like the fly tying symposium so much.
Yeah, no, that's why I wanted to do it, is because you can get that one-on-one that you want. It's how do you learn that pattern? What did you do? Where did that thread go? Okay, show me that again. Technique is more or less what I want people to get down when they get to come and hang out with these people.
Yeah, got it. And so, Adam, what's the best way for folks to follow your adventures at the Vice and on the water?
Sure. Yeah, just Instagram, adam.hortenberry. That's the main spot. Facebook too, just my name. Hit me up on there and have a conversation. Let's have fun.
Yeah, and you got everything in that link tree on your Instagram profile, and I'll drop all that stuff in the show notes for you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Well, listen, I won't see you before your event, but I wish you all the success in the world, and hopefully I will see you in 2025 or maybe like right before Thanksgiving in 2024 at the Fly Tying Symposium.
Oh, you'll definitely see me there. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's been a blast. Take care.
All righty. Thank you. Thanks, Marvin.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. And don't forget, if you like the podcast, please tell a friend and please subscribe and leave us a rating and review in the podcatcher of your choice. I hope everyone has a safe and happy 4th of July. Tight lines, everybody.